but you're saying a site supervisor, which my principal's been really good. I go talk to him. He gives me the data and the information that I need
For right now.
for right
But
now.
later on, you're going to need,
So when do I mean, because Dr. Clark had to sign off on stuff. I think he teaches some classes for Gardner Webb.
okay,
But, I mean, he's the one that said yes, he would do it,
okay.
whatever. So when do I need to make contact with him?
I would go ahead and let him know what you're working on at this point, because he is the one who will sign off on all of this at some point, and so they just need to know that you're already working on stuff. Even though you're working more closely with your principal because you're doing your school, or whoever, because you're doing your school level one. And in some cases, you're still getting information from the person who's going to be your site supervisor, depending on what you're doing. But you need to go ahead and just make them aware of what you're working on, because they're the ones who are ultimately going to sign off on your 400 hours.
So like
And
CNN.
who,
Mm-hmm.
and who is that individual? It can't be,
Who did you identify when you applied?
I was at a different school, it was my principal.
Okay.
So now,
It's going to have to change.
yeah, now I have the Dean of Academics.
That's perfect.
Okay. But we don't have to have anyone at Gardner Webb right now, right?
I am the person at Gardner Webb right now.
Okay.
I'm your Gardner Webb person.
Okay. I was just
Okay.
making sure.
Yeah, no, that's me. Right. I am your internship supervisor and coach, and we're still working on how that's going to work out long term, but for right now, it's me. So, Sherry, be thinking about somebody in your district who's a curriculum person.
Just any, because there's several, there's like this one over math, one over, and then one over.
Right. Pick one you, yeah.
Yeah.
Pick one you want
I
who
mean,
you think
she's
you can
okay,
work
but
with.
it's just I don't like math.
Right. I understand that. Yes. And see if they'll agree to do it. We are working on specific expectations so that they have an idea, but basically it's just that they give you guidance if you need it, as far as collecting data and those kinds of things. If there's stuff you're looking for and it may be things that you have trouble getting, we hope that they will work with you to help you get that data. Also, they're just signing off that you have to be willing to sign off on the fact that you're completing these hours of internship.
Is there something in our course description that kind of talks about what the designee or?
No, that's what we're working on.
Okay.
We recognize the fact that everybody's asking us that question, so we need to write one. Yeah, so we're working on it. Yes, ma'am.
Does it have to be your principal or is on it, just saying, can it be just someone in the district?
It needs to be someone in the district. It does not need to be your principal. It needs to be someone who has a bigger view than your principal. Because you're working at district level leadership at this point.
It has to be the curriculum, so it's just not necessarily like the, assistant superintendent or something like, you know.
Well, I mean, it depends on their role. There are assistant superintendents in charge of curriculum, so it depends on your district and whatever. I would focus on somebody who has something to do with curriculum. It could be the person who does special ed curriculum. It could be the person who does AG curriculum. I mean, it can be that specialized. It honestly just depends on your district and how that's broken down. I mean, I know exactly who it would have been in my district, but we had one secondary curriculum person. We were kind of small, you know.
The 400 hours need to be completed.
The end of your career here, the end of
Okay.
your coursework.
Okay. 3 years.
Yes. The end of your coursework, not the end of your just 2 years. Yes, the end of your classwork.
You said that the time that we spend gathering all this data for these first projects count too.
If you are logging it, they need to be willing to sign off on it. That's going to be, because they're not directly supervising this piece. So, but yes, it can count if they're willing to, if they'll sign off that that's what you're doing, yes. Because this is part of the process. Yes, sir.
So I had, like 3 meetings last week with different people in the school, kind of talking about what I was trying to do. And I took notes, dated and took notes. What am I what do I do with that? Is that what you need to see, that I'm, to corroborate what I'm saying, that I'm meeting with people, I'm just not making stuff up? Is that am I making sense?
Yes, you are making total sense. What we talked about last time we met, was some sort of log where you're writing up what you're doing. Yes, you would keep that information, but I am not policing that. If your supervisor is signing off on that, I am taking that as word that, and you're writing it and the supervisor signs off on it, then I'm taking that as word that it was done. Does that make sense?
And does that count toward the 400 hours?
If it is directly related to curriculum and instruction, absolutely. Anything you do that's related to curriculum and instruction and those teacher leader standards, as long as you can tie it back to those standards, it counts.
What if you're going to seminars or PDs on curriculum and instruction?
Does it tie back to those standards? The 7 standards, right?
So,
Yeah. If your supervisor will sign off on it.
She will, I was in her classroom.
So yes,
Can her supervisor sign off?
no, sorry. Your supervisor has to sign off on it, but yes. And here's the biggest message. If your supervisor will sign off on it and you can relate it back to the standards, it counts. Some of you will have 400 hours knocked out by the end of the semester. Elizabeth's like, I'm done. I don't even need to worry about it. But and a lot of what you do ties back to the standards.
That's what I was gonna say, it's not just me, I went home and did a spreadsheet last weekend after class and logged 290 hours from this current school year.
Already.
It's not different from what teachers are doing, because
Right.
I'm meeting with teachers.
Right,
So if you all are logging those types of meetings going on,
right,
it's the same thing.
right.
You know, PLC meetings can be that way, school improvements meetings, staff meetings, professional development, I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are freaking out about something that is not something to freak out about at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just logged that as made columns for each thing, you know.
Uh-huh.
It just, I couldn't believe it, how fast it just.
It's amazing. Yeah.
happened up.
As even when I was doing this for my administration degree, I had to do the same thing. Everything, I mean, lunch duty. Well, we had to eat lunch with our kid. I mean, we were always had lunch duty. There wasn't just that alone. Those kinds of things. Now, granted, we want more than that, which is why we put you into these projects, because you need more experience than just somebody keep sending you to do the same thing. Go analyze the data that Beth doesn't want to analyze. You know, you don't want to do that over and over again. You need a more broad experience. So you do want to show that you've got to meet all of the standards through this log. So if there's something as you're going, and that's why you have 2 years to do it. As you're going through the program, if you see one that you're not meeting, you need to purposefully think about, okay, I need this activity can do this. I need to meet it by doing this. Does that make sense? But you've got 2 years to do it. And it's 400 hours.
So we get into this discovery education thing, is that 8 hours?
If your supervisor will sign off on it.
It might be more what you could bring back to your school and talk about it. Whether that would be.
And that's what mine is gonna say. Oh, you can go,
But,
but.
But you gotta present it.
Right.
Now, okay.
Distinguished.
exactly.
Okay. So we go, let's just be optimistic.
You're going. You're in, JP. You don't have to be optimistic, dude. You're done.
So, so we go.
Mm-hmm.
Then we come back and my boss says, okay, during our leadership meeting from 1:30 to 2:30 on Tuesdays, you gotta present.
Mm-hmm.
So if she signs off on the 2-hour presentation, is that?
Yes. Right. That's what I'm saying.
And the time you spend preparing it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is, okay.
Right. Right.
You, Jesse's like, I got 50 hours.
Right.
now.
That was easy. I'm done.
Okay.
Right. Right. Now, part of my duties as supervisor is to come out and at some point, if I can get a sit down with your site supervisor, come out and talk to them more than once if possible throughout your course of the program about what you're doing. And it may be an introductory meeting, it may be a progress check at midpoint, and it may be a final check at the end. I mean, it's not going to be a constant thing, so I don't want them to think I'm going to constantly be bothering them. But they, you know, I will want their input on how they feel like you're progressing through the program. Makes sense? So that's part of my responsibility as internship supervisor is to communicate with them as well. So you need to let them know that I will be communicating with them.
So we need a site supervisor and an internship?
I'm your internship supervisor.
Okay, you're the internship.
We're calling.
Well, if the person is not on our site that we're interning with,
But your site is the district. Does that help? Okay. Yeah, I know it's hard because you're thinking school, and it's bigger than school. Yeah, it's bigger than school. You guys are bigger than school now, where you're working that way. That's one of the biggest challenges of this program for those of you who haven't been in a role that's not a classroom teacher, is start to think about how what's going on and the decisions you make are going to impact more than your department, your grade level, your group. Because as you start working toward district, even though that may not be your goal, you may end up there. And so as you start working towards some of these ideas, you're going to have to think about how does this affect all English departments across the district? What does this decision do to all of those people? So it's not anymore just what does it do to my little group that I am familiar with and know very well. And it's kind of what Elizabeth was saying last night. It's hard for her to go in and look at data that's not hers specifically, but it's also hard for her to go in and have those conversations with people that feel like she's coming in and judging them based on that data, which is not the intent of what's going on, but that's how they feel. You would feel that way. If somebody from the outside's looking at your data and they come in and to make suggestions, you're going to think, they are judging me. And that's not the case at all. It's the whole improvement piece. So that's where you've got to start working toward that mindset of how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to help facilitate this? And how am I going to build those relationships to make it so that they don't feel that way? And that is somewhat of a time thing. I mean, Elizabeth's just been in these schools from the beginning of the year. So it's going to take them time for them to trust that she's not coming in and judging and all that. And hopefully it works out that that's the way it goes.
Many people have information on crucial conversations where you feel like you're really good at addressing tough stuff. I would welcome that. I have a meeting on Monday morning that I'm worse. Good with all that.
I just was out in San Francisco last week and got trained on learning-focused supervision and those kinds of conversations, and that is something to look at. That's very beneficial. And we will actually, we're talking about where all that information fits into this program, because that's something that we'll all need to study as you become part of that learning-focused community of putting teachers back in their data and making it not about them, but about what the evidence says. And that's hard. It's hard because it feels personal. It always does, even if it's not. Okay, so back to clinical experience. Sorry, I drift. So identification of site supervisor includes evidence of the site supervisors agreeing to serve, as well as title and contact information. If you are in the same district or in the same area, you can collaborate, but I don't know if that applies to any of you because you're all in different. You can have the same site supervisor is what I'm saying. But I don't think that applies to any of you. If there are other people in this program that are doing that, that you know of in other cohorts or in our low residency cohort or what have you, that is certainly a possibility. We don't want to overwhelm the district with a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things. So you will submit evidence of ongoing work for each seminar hour. Okay, so remember, this semester you have our hours of class time are 700, but you also have a 701 course that's your dissertation seminar hour, and part of that is your clinical experience hour. Okay, so that's all combined. It doesn't mean anything except for your grade for that, and it may even be a pass-fail, but your grade for that is you get 2 grades on your transcript, basically. We're doing all of the same. We're covering it all in these courses and in this work. It's all lumped together. But I'll have to assign you 2 grades. Okay? That's all that means. So clinical experience consists of professional experiences and reflection about those experiences connected to the teacher leader model standards and is initially planned in 701. So we're going to start the planning today. The IS is the method of assessing the clinical experience. Over the course of study, candidates will engage in activities designed by professors and program planners aimed at specific learner outcomes, which are the evidences that we have planned, and you're working on 3 of them at this point. Naturally, candidates will experience unplanned activities. Basically, everything else you do, we didn't plan. A reflection on the impact of both of these planned and unplanned experiences, attributable in part or whole to the EDCI program, will be submitted in 711, which is your last seminar course. So at the end of your actual coursework, before you get into your dissertation hours, but at the end of your actual coursework, this needs to be completed. So, specific components are below. So today we are going to start working on the plan itself. So, you are going to craft a plan as to how you intend to engage in projects and activities aligned with the teacher leader model standards. You're basically creating your framework for the next 2 years of how you're going to get this done. Some of you have already started that process and thought about it. It includes candidate reflection on context, process, and product of the evidences with specific attention to goals, outcomes, strategies, resources, and timelines. You will write the rubric for successful completion of the evidences. So you are in charge of your grade for this. You are writing your rubric for your completion of this. I'm not seeing a lot of excited faces about that, but the good news is that this is yet again something that you can attribute to your position, because your activities, JP, are going to look vastly different from Sabrina's activities, are going to look vastly different from Sherry's activities because of the roles you guys play in your organizations. Okay? All right, so there are questions about that at this point? I know you want to ask me how and what does it look like, and I can't answer that for you because it is dependent upon you and what you're doing. Yeah. Other questions besides how, or are you just processing? All right, so let's talk a little bit. What are some of your thoughts as you're processing this about how you might plan to complete this requirement?
Isn't all the stuff we do for our CNA, for our OA, all of those meetings and everything, that's part of it.
Absolutely.
So just making plans to do the work.
Right.
Would be as specific as,
Would it be as specific as setting aside a certain amount of time each week to, I mean, are we talking about a pacing guide for ourselves?
The intent is for you to set yourself on a timeline so that you can be successful, whatever that means for you, whatever your process is. But to help facilitate you, on my side, to help facilitate your planning of getting all of this done in a reasonable manner. So yes, it can be that specific as saying, I'm going to set aside, I'm going to work this day. I mean, however you work, I would have picked, okay, Sunday afternoons, this is what I'm doing. But that's me. See, so whatever works. JP was talking about that hour that he could have in the mornings. That could be a part of his plan. That's why there is no form. I can't say this is what it's going to look like.
I found it helpful to go back and read the standards and go ahead and think about which ones I already thought naturally were going to occur and which ones that I thought I was gonna have to be more purposeful about seeking some guidance or resources or help from you guys or whatever about. That was my,
That's what I was thinking,
Start with the
that.
standards.
Like knowing exactly what you have to, since it's all of the
Mm-hmm.
evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing up front what that means and then filling in
That would be my recommendation.
definites and then trying to.
Right.
find something.
Right.
When you align the standards, like you said, for this project, you scroll down and y'all
Mhm.
identified the standards.
Mm-hmm.
So per semester, if I focus on just the ones you've identified, by the time I get to the end, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna
because
have them
all of the
covered.
standards are in there. Some more than others, but they're all in there.
So they're, all right, so I don't have to worry about just looking at everything all at one time. I can look at these standards you've posted to make sure during this course, this module, that I've addressed those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But also, you want to supplement with the unplanned activities.
Right.
So you want to, like Elizabeth said, look at the standards and see what are the things that are naturally occurring in my environment anyway, and what am I going to need to purposefully think about? I'm going to have to figure out an activity for this. And that can be part of the plan that you are going to create. Is these are the standards I know I'm going to have trouble meeting, so my timeline is to start looking for avenues to meet this at this point and kind of start setting benchmarks for yourself. Make sense? Yeah, a written plan. Now, does the written plan have to be a narrative?
No.
It can be whatever, yet again, whatever you need it to be. And when I think of written plans for completing something, and this is, yet again, this is just me, I think of action plans because that's the way my brain automatically goes to how am I going to get this done? I'm going to set these goals and these are the steps for the goal, and this is this is my timeline for completing those steps. Okay, so would an example help?
Yeah. Yes.
So one of the big things in the standards is adult learning theory. How comfortable are you guys with your knowledge of adult learning theory at this point? Yeah, so, me too. I was in the same place that you were. So one of your goals is probably going to be to increase your knowledge of adult learning theory. Okay? So you need to say, what is that going to look like for me? And what is a timeline? So your first step may be researching adult learning theory and starting to think about what are the steps of what does that mean? Increasing my knowledge, what does that mean? And what is that going to look like as an end result? How am I going to demonstrate that I have understood that I am understanding that? And so your evidence may be writing something about it. Your evidence may be incorporating it into your dissertation, depending on what your topic is. Your evidence may be planning professional development based on the tenets of adult learning theory. It could be any of those. It could be something that happens as a spinoff of coursework, because we will deal with it in coursework because we know that that's usually a gap. So this process is going to require you to delve somewhat into this handbook and see where we're doing what. That will help you plan a timeline. You also have, like Dania said earlier, don't get dizzy watching the scroll. This piece.
Just an aside,
Mm-hmm.
it would be really nice if there were like, return to top or, like hot link of, and then we can go from the table of contents directly to the CNA and
I don't know how to do that in a document.
just create a hot link in a Word document. It's possible because the principal did that on their school handbook.
I'm gonna have to figure that one out. That's pretty. You're right. That would be much more helpful than me scrolling like crazy. Mm-hmm.
Just have to insert a hyperlink at the bottom of where you're doing, back up to the
Back to the
section header.
But if the table of contents is live. then
That's the
you
thing. I
just
have to
see
make the
that
table of
you put-
contents live. That was what I was confused about. Okay.
I don't think you have to do that.
Well, you can't hot link it if it's not live.
If you want to go to move from the document just from the table of contents.
Yeah, you can go back to the
Yeah,
table of
you
contents each time, which is on whatever page, and then you can find whatever it is you're looking for.
Right.
Click on it there and do it.
I will add that suggestion to the to-do list for people who have way more intelligence than me about that kind of stuff.
The standards that are listed for this CNN and all that, if you read them, it's all about, looking at the data, analyzing the data, collecting the data. Your PLCs are getting together doing that every single week.
Right. Right. So it's in there. I mean, it's there.
I guess, I'm hands-on, but like I said, you tell me, okay, you get to create a timeline in your way. It's helpful to see examples of timelines because not ever doing one in this.
So what would your first step be?
Really take a piece of paper and just write down everything that I need to do and then look at, okay, what has to be first, finish first, what has to be second, because I visualize these as individual entities,
Mhm.
but you're telling me they can blend and mix and cross over,
Right.
and I don't visually see that yet.
Right. Right.
And so right now I'm going, oh my God, I'm like, yay, check, one's off,
Yeah.
this is down, I'm done. So, and I'm looking at this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece, and it's like, we're done before Thanksgiving. And I know that
Mhm.
some of it is a work in progress
Mhm.
that's not
Right.
completed to the end, but that's just such a new concept because in every other thing, it's by the end of the semester, this will be done, turned in, you're finished. So
Yeah, this
even a new
this world is
concept, even-
completely different.
It
Yes.
is, it is.
Yes. And the expectation is that you guys will take this and internalize it and start making those connections, which is why we don't have the visual drawn out, because you've got to look at it and start figuring out, because part of your process as you get into these upper level positions is to see this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece and figure out where they all fit together and work together. I mean, that's part of what your responsibility will be it's like taking groups of your students. I mean, it's the same process, it's just on a bigger level, where you take groups of your kids and you're figuring out, okay, if I have this group doing this and this group doing this, then how are we all going to come back together to make this? So, now, and visuals of timelines, you guys aren't the first people who have done projects like this, so, like Sabrina just Googled stakeholder engagement. What did you Google? Surveys? And found wonderful wealth of information. It's out there. You just have to go look for it. Samples are out there of what we're doing. You just have to go look for it.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. Right.
That works for me.
Okay. So, the other thing is, even though we're done with classes by Thanksgiving, you don't have to be done with these projects by Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Grades aren't due until the second week in December.
So this is just something we want at the end of the semester.
Like, that was like the best.
Yeah.
We expected
Of my
to
life.
I'm sorry.
I've been in some sort of panic mode about.
Because I've been spending
About
the last 2
Thanksgiving.
weeks reading this crazy book that we've got to do the next time, so I didn't get any of this junk done, so I've been even further behind, and I'm wishing I was you guys.
Yeah, I had like the 17th.
Yeah,
November
that's what I
17th was the drop dead date in my head.
Yeah,
Right.
no. I'll give you the drop dead date in a minute, but no.
That is lovely information.
Yes.
At least we have.
My bad for omitting that piece of information from the beginning.
That's
I mean,
what we're
'cause
sitting
I'm like,
here.
don't you only have 3 more classes? I mean,
You do.
Stop talking
Yes.
to me.
Right.
Yes.
My mom does that to me
Yeah,
too.
stop talking to me about the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, I really was.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
For when
Okay,
you
yeah, I feel
Is there
better.
anything I can do to help you? Yes, give me
Mhm.
another time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that you feel better about that,
amazingly helpful.
Don't suck that away.
don't say it that way. Well, I'm getting it all over now. It's only 10:30, so I still got time. I gotta do it all before lunch. This plan that we have now started discussing is due November 1st. The plan, the internship completion plan. Now, is that set in stone? No,
Including the rubric.
including the rubric.
Okay,
Sorry.
I need to set up some tutoring hours since you're my person.
Uh-huh. You know what my answer's gonna be?
Ah.
Uh-huh. I will be happy to work with you and give you feedback along the way, but it may not be as specific as you're looking for, but I'll be happy to help guide you. Yes. That is my role. I am the facilitator of this journey.
Are you scaffolding our learning?
I am trying to. Yes. It's my evil plan. But yes, and this is just a draft because we all know the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Thank you, John Steinbeck.
My favorite quote.
Me too. Okay. Are we still on overwhelmed stage? Or are we okay at this point?
No, we won't be okay.
We're not great.
You'll be okay in 2 years, so I need to quit asking that question.
I feel great.
Alyssa's like, woohoo!
Seriously, like, that is.
I am so sorry that I had you stressed about that.
What's the drop dead date?
Yeah, okay, drop dead date is the next thing we need to talk about. So,
What is a drop dead date?
the last possible time that you can submit stuff.
That's the day that you're gonna be taking off work.
Right.
I hope not.
I need to know when to put in my time.
I hope you don't all submit everything at the same time. It'll kill me. My drop dead date can't be the day grades are due, obviously. Okay, so let's look. December. So final exams are here. Grades will be due that next Monday. I'm afraid that's not going to give me long enough. Because if there's a big issue with something, I want to be able to send it back to you, and I want you to have enough time to. I don't foresee there being a big issue with something, but just in case. 9th, December 9th.
Of course.
What if we give you it all at one time?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's going to freak me out, but I'll get it done.
So should we set like have one due at a particular week and the next one due?
No.
Well, the
You
problem-
should do
Drop
that.
dead.
Don't you encroach on me.
The problem is, Bev, with that is your CNA and your SEP should be related, so you can't give that to me prior to.
That's really all kind of one.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's one kind
I'm
of.
just like, I'm looking at my base camps here.
I know.
Because I've
Right.
been carrying gorillas standing
Now-
on top of the mountain.
Here's the thing: we've got a couple more class meetings. Okay, so we need to start doing progress checks. So I would love it, because I keep telling you to work on stuff, if you would begin bringing things, and those afternoons we can set up conferences to look at what you've got and help me guide you. So when I get to the 9th, first of all, I know what you've been doing, so I'm not overwhelmed. And secondly, because I don't only you guys aren't my only class. So, and secondly, you guys already know, so you don't get it back with 2 days to go do something major.
better save those 6 days for the 10th.
Right.
Later on that week.
Right.
We'll get this-
Okay, so I'm putting this on the calendar.
Sometimes that made my whole, like, there's more annual than Because I kept thinking, gosh, I've got 4 days off of Thanksgiving, and I can't even work on it. You know, all
It's
these-
okay.
I heard the Jesus part.
Look, I'm a middle school teacher. I hear everything you don't want me to hear. I can't hear anything you actually want me to hear.
That's right.
That's the way it works.
And you were parenting teen boys, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that is.
Yeah.
When you hear,
You know them running.
Mm-hmm. Oh
the
yeah.
equivalent
When it
of
gets
a-
quiet,
uh-huh.
I know
Toddler
to show
saying,
up.
Look, Mom, watch this.
All right, so everybody's feeling better now? Well, some of you are feeling better now.
On this intern completion plan.
Yes.
Internship, that should say that's due November 1st.
That's due November
Is
1st.
this written up somewhere in here?
It is on
Under-
the wiki.
Okay,
It says it on the wiki that it's due November 1st.
no,
It's in the handbook.
That's where I just was.
what page?
It's in the
47.
bottom of the-
Just so I can,
After the CNN and
Yeah, it's page 47.
all that. After the SCP,
I just want to earmark it. So I can.
after program evaluation.
I'm gonna scroll back 47. I'll be sick.
Is that something else I got?
It
Mhm.
really is.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's labeled clinical experiences is what it is here.
After that,
But I'll tell you that it's not, even with animals that makes it pretty, it doesn't, it's not free to explore it, so if you wanna.
Get closer.
if you wanna
I'll
show
get
those
there.
or just screenshot it.
Curriculum design projects.
Learner.